Hello and welcome to this episode of the Guy Tribe podcast. Today we are going to discuss a topic that affects every one of us, even though we rarely think about it. But first, let me paint a picture. Just imagine it's a cold winter morning. You wake up shivering because the heating isn't working. You flick the light switch, nothing. You check your phone, the Wi-Fi is off, mobile data is dead, and you can't reach anyone. The kettle won't boil, the shower only has icy water, and the whole house feels frozen. Confused, you look outside. The street lamps are dark, traffic lights are out, cars are stuck, people are walking around in a haze of uncertainty, and then it hits you. This isn't a bad dream. You've just experienced a power system blackout. As grim as that sounds, versions of this scenario were reality for almost 70 million people in 2025 alone, following two major events: the Iberian Peninsula blackout in April and the Brazilian nationwide blackout in October, just last month. And according to many experts, many power systems around the world are operating closer to the edge than most people realize. So to help us unpack what's happening and why, I'm joined by Professor Janusz Bialek, who is a leading international authority on electric power systems with a career spanning academia, energy regulation, and industry. He's currently a principal research fellow in the Control and Power Group at Imperial College London, and has previously held professorships at Newcastle University, Durham University, and the Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology. He's a co-author of a widely used textbook, Power System Dynamics, Stability and Control, published by J. Wiley, which is now in its third edition, and his publications have attracted over 13,000 citations. He has been principal investigator and co-investigator of many multi-million research grants funded by Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, Electric Power Research Institute, Russia's Ministry of Education and Science, and the UK power industry. He has also been a consultant to the industry, UK government, European Commission, and the International Energy Agency. His research covers power system stability, blackout prevention, renewable integration, and the economic operation of modern power grids. Professor Bialek, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so how real is the risk of a power system blackout?
Well, it's very real, very much everywhere. You never know when and where is the next one coming. In this country, in the UK, we've been lucky so far that we haven't had a wide area blackout. It means a blackout covering large area rather than just some people along the street or some very small area being affected. This is due to many reasons. One of them is that the transmission network is quite dense, and it's also, this country has very good record of keeping reliability. However, in many other parts of the world, it is more or less common. I mean, for example, in some of the countries, like in India, it is endemic. If you go to India, it's quite known. It happens quite regularly that the lights go out, and all the big establishments, restaurants, whatever, they'll have their own diesel backups, which come in automatically. But in the developed world, like in Europe or Northern America, they do happen. I don't know, in the frequency, I don't know, maybe one big one every 10 years or so, but they do happen. So you mentioned Iberia in your introduction.
Yeah.
So Spain and Portugal in April this year suffered a wide area blackout. It happened very quickly. In kind of 1 minute, everything went black. And
It's affected about 50 million people, I'm told.
Over 50 million people were directly affected. It took, depending on the area, I think from about 6 to 12 hours to restore supplies. And as you also mentioned in the introduction, is we as the society depend entirely on the supply of electricity, on the reliable supply of electricity. You don't notice until you see it, that it's missing. It's like air, it's everywhere. And but when it does happen, you suddenly realize that there's absolutely everything depends on electricity supply. You just the modern society that cannot function without it, even for a short period of time.
Yeah. What are the major causes of these blackouts?
Well, there are two major causes. Well, two kind of groups of causes of those blackouts. One is connected with generation. It means there may be not enough generation plants on the system. So that's I mentioned India. They don't have enough power stations running. So it means at times the demand.
Shed off the load.
Well, yeah. So yes, that's right. So when the demand is higher than the supply, then the generation, they have to shed the load, which is a technical term. It means disconnecting some of the customers. And the other common reason for blackouts is due to the transmission network. So electricity is supplied in different power stations spread around the country, and the power comes to customers through transmission lines. And if those transmission lines become overloaded, it means too much current flowing on them. Then the transmission wires heat up. When there's a current flowing through a wire, it heats up. And if it exceeds a maximum allowable limit, it is being disconnected by protection relays to protect the particular transmission lines. And then the most famous examples of that was a 2003 a blackout in eastern United States and Canada, and also Italy. Also in 2003 happened due to transmission blackouts. It means something happening in the transmission network, and then the blackout starts like a domino. So basically, one line trips, that overloads the next line because the power has to flow somewhere. The next one is overloaded, and etc. and etc. in a domino effect.
And that's why it's called a cascading blackout.
That's why it's called a cascading blackout. One trips the next one, and there's a cascading domino effect. It's kind of similar terms, and that also can happen very quickly. With the Iberian blackout, the reason are quite technical, quite convoluted. I mean, if you want, I can talk more detail about it.
I was going to ask about that. So these are what particularly caused the Iberian blackout. I tried to follow the news. It was all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the whole country went black.
LinkedIn blew up within a few minutes.
Yeah.
And first of all, I think it took quite some time for an official statement to be made about the cause of the blackout. And I don't know whether that's because it takes time to investigate to find out why, or if there's something else going on. So could you please shed some light on that?
Yeah, indeed. The first official reports came up, I think, about 2 months after the blackout.
That's a long time.
That's a very long time, and that's why the internet was full of all kind of hypotheses.
Yes.
People,
it's inevitable.
So-called experts coming with all kind of weird explanations. Just plenty of them. There's no point going too much about it. And that's why it's actually quite surprising, because with the previous blackouts, the first explanation would come up pretty quickly in the terms of days. This time around, it took longer. I'm not sure exactly why is the reason. One of the reasons could be the risk of litigation.
Risk of what?
Litigations. Okay. But of course, a blackout causes enormous losses, going into tens or even hundreds of, let's say tens of billions of dollars or euros.
Even if it happens just for a few hours?
Even if it happens, maybe in some tens, then there'll be few. But anyway, we're talking about large amounts of money. Huge amounts of money. So of course, people are litigious. They will start to sue each other and etc. So that's why official bodies were careful with releasing information, because they didn't want to start that kind of process. And Europe is less litigious than the United States. I mean, United States is famous or infamous for its litigious kind of atmosphere. Over there, people will sue each other for anything. So that's why it's a very serious risk. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about people going to court about the Iberian blackout. But even the risk of reputation is huge. If a particular party is accused of causing it, it may cause huge loss of reputation and the loss of revenues, because people will stop dealing with that body. So the first reports came out, as I said, about 2 months afterwards, and then ENTSO-E, which is the Organization of European Network System Operators, published a report in October. But it was so-called factual report. It means they said this is what has happened. They didn't attach blame to anyone. They didn't say why it happened. They just, this is what's happened. The next report, the full ENTSO-E report, is supposed to come out in January or February, I can't remember, which will be full report, which then we will know more. And this is actually very disappointing, because the report, the blackout happened in April.
Yeah.
So basically we are 4 or 5 months afterwards, and we still really don't know what's happened. Yeah. Even in those reports which have been released, this is full of hypotheses. It's saying, well, because a lot of those generation trips happened in the lower voltage distribution area, networks which are less metered than the high voltage transmission areas. There are not enough measurements, and they are not sure what has happened. In those reports, they don't even release the names of power stations which tripped.
Wow.
We know the regions, and I mean, probably people who are well familiar with that particular region, they will know which actually power station tripped. But officially, we don't know. And for someone based in Britain rather than in Spain, it's very difficult to make sense out of that. So that's why, as I said, internet was full of all kind of strange hypotheses because people didn't have enough information. Now there's more information, but it is still not the full information.
Yeah, I think it all goes to show the extent to which the science and the politics are very intertwined when it comes to energy security. But based on your experience and your expertise, what do you think, if you were to hypothesize, what would you think was the cause of the Iberian blackout in particular, and by extension, what are the signs that power engineers look for to identify a network that is susceptible to a blackout?
Yes. So the initial suspicion fell on renewable generation plants. It means solar and wind farms, because they have very different characteristics to the traditional coal, oil, or nuclear or hydro plants. So there was all kind of hypotheses, and indeed those plants did trip. And now we are coming into politics. You ask about politics, and this is very much political question because, as you know, there's a whole debate at the moment about renewables. In the United States is questioning the whole premise of going to that direction. They want to go back to oil, drill, baby drill, as President Trump said. In Europe, we still do believe in climate change and the need to replace traditional fossil fuel power stations by renewable generation or nuclear. So there is a political dimension, because if there's a renewable station tripped, are they guilty? Maybe we shouldn't go that direction. There is a whole discussion about it.
Yeah.
So what has happened is it was a new phenomenon. Usually those blackouts happened due to something we didn't know about, because if we did know about it, it would have happened, because we could have prevented it. So the new phenomena was between two things which are well known, but there was never kind of interaction between them which would have caused a blackout. So one phenomena was so-called power system oscillations, which is a well-known phenomena in Europe and the other parts of the country. Basically, in traditional power systems, when the traditional big power stations with a lot of big rotating parts, rotors, turbines, there's this phenomena of inter-area oscillations. It means generators in one area will oscillate, the torsional oscillations, against generators in other part. And this well-known phenomenon, there are a number of those modes when the Eastern Europe oscillates against Western Europe and the North against the South. Nothing new about it. And there are well-known ways of dealing with it, which one of the ways of dealing with it, this is to increase the voltage on the network, because if you increase the voltage, you increase the damping, and also you connect additional transmission lines, because if you increase the strength of the transmission network, more lines are connected. Again,
equalizes.
It basically, it damps. It helps to damp those oscillations. And this is what the system operators did. So they try to improve the raise the voltage in the network by different means, by connecting additional lines, and by connecting reactors, disconnecting reactors, which that basically means increasing the voltage. So what's happened is, and this is due to specific Spanish situation. So there's well-known things that the voltages will go up and would go up, and the oscillations will be dumped out. However, it all realized that the voltage control in the whole system is done properly. And in my opinion, what's happened in France, in Spain, is they didn't adapt the overall voltage control scheme in the country to the new situation when traditional power plants are replaced by renewable plants. So the specific situation is, so the voltages in the system are generally the main means of controlling the voltage are those big traditional generators. And you need a number of them spread around the country. On the day of the blackout, there are only 10 power stations, traditional power stations, which control the voltage, which was a lower number than the previous day. And with the hindsight, it was not enough. Basically, they were not able, the power system operators didn't have enough handles to keep the voltages under control. The additional thing, which is specific for Spain, is that all those renewable plants, solar and wind farms, they are connected to the power system not by means of synchronous generators like in traditional plants, but by means of inverters.
Yeah.
Those inverters can also produce reactive power. However, a particular solution applied in France is they are not controlling automatically voltage on the network. Basically, they operate at the constant so-called power factor. It means their reactive power generation, which helps the voltage, is directly related to the amount of real power it produces. In Portugal, which is a neighboring country, which was also brought down by the blackout, they've adopted different principles. It means there, those inverters by which the renewable plants are connected to the rest of the system do contribute to automatic voltage control. And they didn't have any problems with voltage in Spain, in Portugal. They brought down by Spain because Portugal is a small country connected to Spain. But the problem was Spain. So the two main things was there was not enough means of voltage control in Spain. A, not enough traditional generators connected, only 10. And B, that renewable generators were not allowed to automatically control the voltage. There are many reasons for that. We can discuss it later on. Anyway, coming back to the situation. So the oscillations, they increase the voltage because that helps to damp oscillations. But as you increase the voltage, it creates a vicious circle. That basically, as the voltage increased, some of those PV plants started to trip. They were not supposed to trip, but they did trip. So there's a question of non-compliance with grid regulations. They should have handled the increased voltage, but some of them, due to factors we still don't know about because they haven't been disclosed, started to trip. And as they tripped, that increased the voltage even more because less power was flowing in the transmission network, and that increased the voltage level. So there was a vicious circle. When plants started to trip, that increased voltage even further, even higher. That caused more stations to trip, and etc., until the voltage went up to a completely unacceptable level, and big power stations started to trip, and basically there was a total blackout. So to summarize, the reason for the blackout was interactions between measures to damp oscillations and the voltage control. Those things haven't been thought through properly. That's why it happened. So it is to some extent unique situation for Spain for the reasons I mentioned, that they didn't have these renewable generators contribute to voltage control, and not enough traditional power stations contributing to voltage control. However, it is a well-known phenomenon.
Yeah.
So you may ask, for example, why it doesn't happen in this country. Well, in this country, we have more traditional generators connected around the country, but B, also the renewable generators do contribute to voltage control. There are mechanisms to enable it to do it.
They're forced to do so through the grid codes.
Through the grid code. Basically, you cannot connect to the grid unless you satisfy certain requirements.
Yes, so one can understand that these power systems are extremely complicated networks, especially when it's interconnected between countries. I know that the UK in 2019, I think August of 2019, had some blackout of some sort in the north of Scotland, and it was due to some subsynchronous oscillations, 8 hertz oscillations, and I think a wind farm had to trip, and it took a very long time for the investigations to go on. In fact, I think as at the last time I checked it, there was still no very concrete culprit, to that. So these are complicated systems, and it seems that when a blackout happens in a region, we can study it and find out the reasons why, and then propose modifications to the grid code in that region, and then other systems can learn from it. But then it means there's probably an infinite number of things that can possibly happen, and something has to go wrong before we discover what can go wrong, right? So I was going to push that to the next question. Is the next blackout probable or inevitable?
Well, it's a very good question. No one knows the answer to it. I can tell you from experience that the next blackout will happen, but when and where, we don't know. As I mentioned, blackouts happen usually due to so-called unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Something we don't know about.
We don't know what we don't know.
So you mentioned those oscillations in Scotland, those are called subsynchronous oscillations. The system operator still is not entirely sure what has happened because there are new phenomena.
This is 5 years after.
That's 5 years after.
6 years.
Even coming to 6 years. Yeah, over 6 because it was in August, I think. 2019 first time. And this is due to the replacement to this new renewable plants, which are connected to the system by means of inverters rather than synchronous generators. Sorry, completely new phenomena, completely new physics of the system. We are still learning. So at the moment, we are living in the transitional period from the old, well-known world of the power systems of the 20th century, starting from the end of the 19th century. So the industry developed over 100 years. And then it was developing and expanding slowly. It was all based on those traditional power plants, powered by which converted energy using synchronous generators. And we knew it pretty well. And it was expanding slowly. And now suddenly we have this revolution with those new renewable plants, which operated according to completely different laws of physics. Basically, everything is programmable. All kind of things could go wrong, and we don't fully understand it. So we are living in transitional period. Before we fully understand what is happening in the system, I'm afraid that we might be surprised from time to time to it. I'm sure that at the end of the day, I don't know, next 10 years or so, the situation will be back under control, with blackouts being very infrequent. But in the meantime, things may happen.
So I want to mention a few things, about 6 of them, and I want you to, on a scale of 1 to 10, predict or rank to what extent each of these is likely to be the culprit of the next power system blackout. The first is what I think you've already touched on: inverter-based resources. They have the difference in terms of the way they behave, the way they operate, and fault current, voltage support. And there are some technical solutions to help to provide system services even with inverter-based resources. But to what extent do you think IBRs, inverter-based resources, will be the culprit of the next blackout?
Well, this is the subject, one area of subject of this university, Imperial College. We have a huge group. We got a lot of funding to sort out that problem. We are still working on it, very much so. But as I said, these are new phenomena, which we don't fully understand. We are working on them, but it is quite probably that it might happen. Because, as I said, unknown unknowns. We just don't know.
So quite probable means higher than 5?
So what's your scale, 1 to 5?
1 to 10.
1 to 10. Probably 6 or 7, I would say.
Okay. How about protection systems? Legacy protection systems are known to be stiff in terms of how we innovate on them.
Yes.
Protection systems are really old. So there's some blame put on protection systems because of the fact that they're designed for synchronous generators, and now we have to adapt them to renewables. So to what extent do you think they're likely to be the culprit?
Yeah, I mean, historically, most of the blackouts did happen, sorry to say, because I know there's this area of your research, right? Due to malfunctions of the protection systems. Usually those blackouts happen because some of those protections acted not the way they were designed to do. But the thing about those protection systems, all those relays, they are put in the system 10, 20, 30 years ago, and they sit there and do nothing. And it's very difficult to check whether they would operate correctly or not. And then suddenly something happens and they misoperate, right? And it causes problems. So protection always has been a kind of, Achilles heel of the whole system. Always has been, and now it's even more due to things you've been talking about, that those protection systems have been designed for the traditional generation. Now those new renewable generators have completely different characteristics. The behavior of the system is different. So we need, but changing the whole protection system is impossible, because this legacy, the cost would be billions. Huge disruption. So there's a question, clever people like yourself have to work out, how to use this old protection in a new way. So there's a question whether to adapt protection to the new conditions, or those new renewable plants adapt to the existing protection.
What number will you put on
that? Probably a little bit less, about 5.
Okay. I expected number 9, because that would have made my research a lot more more relevant.
But we don't know. That's the thing,
Okay.
I have to tell you a story about it. When I was undergraduate student, and we had a lecture, about protection. And those days, I'm talking now about 70s, protections were analog protections, those
mechanical relays.
Yeah, big relays, the big electromechanical relays. So the lecturer came over, brought one of those relays, put on the table, and said to us, to the rest of the class, now, the first thing you need to know about protection is this. And he blew on it, and the dust went up.
Wow.
So it was gathering dust for God knows how many years, right?
Yeah.
And it's still the case.
I think it's because if protection, it's kind of the major thing that should be on a power system. Because if protection is not there, nothing else can
Must be
work.
there.
Because there will be no safety of life or property. So the fact that it has to be major means it has to be done first, and then it's difficult to, innovate in that space. So yeah, I could understand that. Network model accuracy, because a lot of studies are done using network models, and some of the models are not 100% realistic. So to what extent do you think a faulty network model can cause a blackout?
Well, I wouldn't say the cause blackout. Well, it made analysis and the whole operation of the power system, the way you operate it, more difficult.
And you have to analyze in order to plan.
That's right. So, you want me to put a number of that? It makes life much, much more difficult. But I would think that the other factors would be
more.
Would be far more. I don't know, so maybe three,
Okay,
3, 4, something like that.
Cross-border interconnection. Interconnection between countries increases resilience. But then, like you also said with the Iberian situation, we had a problem in Spain, but because it was connected to Portugal, where there was no problem, at least the second problem, which is the response of the inverters to the low voltage situation, both countries were affected. So cross-country interconnection.
Yeah, well, that's always has been, again, one of those weak points. So most of those blackouts happened due to those problems. So interconnection, we are getting better in understanding them, and there is more interconnections. First of all, the more interconnections you have, the stronger the system. So the it makes less likely for the blackout to happen. So I would say, but it's still a problem. Probably 4 or 5, something like that.
How about the probabilistic versus deterministic security standards? So do you believe that the industry should move to more decisively from the deterministic N-1 security criteria?
Well, this is quite a convoluted technical problem, and the debate, there's a huge debate going on in the industry and in literature about it. Certainly probabilistic methods are better theoretically, but the industry is skeptical about it because they're harder to understand. With deterministic standards like N-1, you know what it is.
Yeah.
With probabilistic, it's some convoluted mathematical analysis which comes up with a number, and people in the industry are saying it's not transparent, they don't know how it works, and etc. I don't think it would be a major cause, so maybe 3.
Okay. And the last one is AI and digitalization. So with increasing use of AI and machine learning in forecasting, protection, and control, are we reducing blackout risk or introducing new systemic vulnerabilities?
There's something I don't know, and no one knows, right? Because this is, again, new kid on the block. We don't know how AI will change. And there's been long-standing worry about cybersecurity.
Yes.
Because with AI, it will be easier probably to attack the system. People may attack the system and cause blackouts for political reasons, because all kind of conflicts around the world, or just 16-year-old kids, bored kids, in the bedroom doing some funny things and causing all kind of problems. This is something, it's very difficult to put a number on it. Everyone knows it's a risk. How real that risk is, no one knows. So I cannot put a number on it.
Unknown.
It is very big unknown.
Finally, going forward, what is the silver lining in this, and what can just an ordinary person out there do to either prevent or to prepare for a blackout scenario? And how relevant is the field of power systems analysis and engineering in today's day?
Well, in terms of the normal people, not like us, is the resilience is the most important thing. It means, as you mentioned in the introduction, we entirely depend on electricity. So think about sort of the consequence if there is no power. What would you do? So it means obvious things like some I don't know, candles, lighters, in the house.
Some batteries and inverters.
Batteries. Well, inverters is more complicated thing. I mean, but there were simple things. I always think, when I when I drive a car, I entirely depend on Google Maps. If there is a blackout, as it was in Spain, actually, mobile networks stopped working, I'll be completely lost. So basically carry paper map, some simple things like that. Just think through the consequences. What would you need to get through the first hours? Because, usually now it takes, I don't know, 6 to 12 hours to restore the supply. So what would you need for the 6 to 12 hours?
Okay.
Yeah. My wife, for example,
survival kit.
Yeah, survival kit. Actually, when I was in California, every hotel has to have survival kit.
Okay.
To get you, because well, I worry about all kinds of things. California is like a place: earthquakes, tsunamis, all kinds of fires, what kind of things. Here in Europe, we are not so exposed to those natural disasters, but blackout may hit us anytime. As I said, no one knows when and where will come the next one.
Yeah, it's there are so many movies about apocalyptic events like this, and it feels like it's gradually becoming a reality. Do you invite more young people to engage in research in this area?
One of the, I keep talking to students. I tell them that now is the most exciting time to do research in power systems because of this revolutionary change. There's so much we don't know and we need to know. The problem of attracting young people, young students to the area is a competition from our areas. So AI is sucking out basically all the best brains, because that's the most important thing, which at the moment we as the humanity face. For good or for bad, no one knows. So I've talked, for example, well, I'm retired, I'm semi-retired at the moment, so I don't teach the students. But when I talk to colleagues who have to propose projects for students to take, and they, especially Americans, tell me that unless we put AI in the title of a project, no one will come, or only poor students will come. If they want to attract the best students, they have to put AI in the title of a project.
We have to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, that's life.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Bialek.
My pleasure.
Wonderful conversation.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you.